So AliExpress has some interesting options, and the thing that they do that they get away with is they sort of rebrand things. And this sort of allows them to make things cheaper than what they are when, you know, big name brands like Asus or Logitech or Thermaltake or Deepcool, not so much anymore, but you know what I mean. But these things get rebranded, and I'm talking about peripherals. I'm talking about hardware, graphics cards, CPU coolers, cases, chassis, power supplies, keyboards, mice, gamepads, webcams, anything you can think of really peripheral and hardware wise. And they rebrand these things and they make them more affordable. And a lot of these things actually come from the same place, and some of it is reused, but usually they are quite good at telling you what is what, and if something is recycled or it is a second-hand item, they will tell you and you will get further discounts. But in the case of just buying parts, it really depends on where you live, and it depends on who you are and what you prefer. But to some people it might be a good choice to actually go with a site like AliExpress. And this brand Soil, for instance, you see a lot of their stuff, and I've seen a lot of YouTubers actually use their stuff, and it seems okay. It doesn't seem like it's going to break in a year or two. And so I thought to myself, in that vein, I'm going to put together a PC for under 10,000 Rand, which is right about six to $700, that will be able to play any modern game at respectable settings and will challenge consoles for a pretty good price. And this is just to show that these parts have a place in the market. But I will say this, you need to be careful with these parts. You need to be careful where you stay, where you live, because it's not always so easy to get these things into wherever they need to go, to get them sold and actually arrived at your door. It can be a little bit difficult, and customs are sort of hard on these things as well, and they tend to just keep them, and break them. So you need to be careful with that. And I do also think that not all sellers on AliExpress are gonna be trustworthy per se, but that's why reviews exist. And I do think they have a decent sort of guarantee sort of process. So if you do find yourself trusting them and you are okay with using them as a site, this is the sort of PC I would go for. Okay, let's get into it. So first up, we have so what I've gone for is a combo. It's a motherboard, a CPU, and RAM all in one. And doing it this way actually saves money. So you can now select, you only want the motherboard or the motherboard and the RAM, motherboard and the CPU, or motherboard, CPU, and RAM. And if you choose all three, you get a bit of a discount. So this comes out to 3,500 Rand, which is right about $200, right about there, maybe a little bit more, $220. So you get the Ryzen 5 5500. This is similar to the CPU that's going to be in the PS5 Pro in terms of performance. You get 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM running at 3200 megahertz, which is not bad. The RAM is, in this case, white, which, depends on what you want, but just be sure to look out for that. And as far as I know, these are all new parts, but as I said, not the most known brand. And it is, Asian marketing and Asian stickers and stuff like that. So that's it for for the core of the PC, and it's not a bad PC, especially for gaming. So to cool that little CPU, we have a little CPU cooler. You don't need much. So we are going with just a little low profile CPU cooler because this is a small PC and we're going to do a small case as well. Just an interesting thing, and you do get the choice between white and black. That's a theme on AliExpress, which I really like. Because let's say your RAM is white and your motherboard is black. You take a white CPU cooler and maybe a white graphics card or whatever, and you can mix these things and it's going to come out looking quite nice. Moving on to the graphics card, I've actually gone for the RX 6600M. So what's happened here is they've actually taken a laptop GPU and put a desktop shroud on it. So what that does, and you can see the difference in oh, this is, I'm not sure what this is. Anyway, you can see the difference in performance is going to be it's going to be relative. There will be a big dip from a normal 6600, which is an RX AMD card, as to a mobile one. But it still has the 8 gigs of VRAM, and it's still going to be good for HD gaming. It's still going to be quite a good pro gaming GPU, and I think it'll do well. It will be limited in some games, but it only has the one 8-pin power point, which is quite interesting, and it doesn't need too much power, which is interesting to compare as well. And this one does have quite a good rating, and so always just be sure to check how much power it actually needs. Now I don't think this says, but as this is a a laptop GPU that's just been sort of transformed, it doesn't need that much power. This will need under like 400 watts to total power this computer, so I'm not too worried about it, but just be sure to check that kind of thing. So that's what I've chosen for the graphics card, but if you add a little bit of extra money, you could easily get a normal 6600, which I would probably do if it were actually my PC, or I would go for a 6700, or maybe the newer 7600 or something like that. But all in all, for 3,000 Rand, $230, $220, it's not a bad option. And then we are going to need storage for those games that we are going to play with this computer. And so here is another area where it becomes sort of, like I said, rebranded. I think a lot of these SSDs are just other brands that have different stickers on them, or that have just been sort of remade. But this is a average SSD. It's an average NVMe drive. It is a 2 terabyte, which is quite nice, and it's not fast at 3,500 megabytes per second, but it's not slow. This is the 1 terabyte variant for 1,000 Rand. But I think a 1 terabyte of SSD storage is enough if you're just going to play games. So this is a Gen 3. You can really just go for what you want here, but for the price, I think it's a good option, and it's going to be okay. Storage is storage pretty much. So that, when talking about cheap PCs, I mean. So yeah, it's not a bad option, and that's what I've gone for. Moving on to the case. Now this is kind of tricky. I think the case will be one of the parts that are more likely to get damaged in customs. So I would probably just buy a case locally if it were me, because the prices don't vary that much. But I would go for something like this if it were my computer that I was building. I think it looks really nice. You get the choice between white and black, and it's just a sleek, nice looking case. Not too much to say about it. Just be sure that your PC will actually fit in this. Now, I'm not exactly sure what form factor this is. It doesn't actually say, but it's obviously a small one. It's probably like, it's not ATX, it's probably just under ATX, so it will be okay for a case like this, because this does take ATX. But just be sure that it can actually fit in whatever you're trying to fit it in. And this is just the kind of case I like. I think it looks nice, it looks sleek, it looks a little bit like a console, and I think it would look nice, and even looks good in white. And then that case doesn't come with fans, so as far as I know, and we have a little bit of budget, so I'll just add my own fans. If I were buying this PC, I would just add a few fans, something like this, just normal Arctic or Cooler Master or whatever brand, doesn't really matter. Just add some fans. If you're going white, go white. If you're going black, go black. But just add a few fans, and that'll just help with some of the airflow and heat, getting it out of that case. But it's not going to run hot anyway. It's going to be a really low power draw, high performance per capita sort of system. So I think it's going to be a nice little PC. And then as for the power supply, I wouldn't buy a power supply from AliExpress. And that's mostly because I don't damage in shipping, again, damage in customs, but also different sort of power cables. Now you can choose your plug, which is quite a nice feature, but this is the sort of thing where I'll just spend a little bit of extra money to get it locally because I know it's going to work and it's going to, it's sort of made for the area that I live in terms of the capacity and the power plugs. And it's just, I want a warranty with my power supplies because I've had it where power supplies take out a whole system, and, buying power supplies that are not name brand and that are not rated well is a no-go for me. So as for the case and power supply, I would probably get that locally, but if I had to choose something, I think something like this would be okay. I don't really know what this is, but it seems to have a lot of connectors and it seems to be about 500 watts, which would be fine for this, and price-wise it's not bad, but I would rather just pay R1,000 to get it locally. So all in all, that brings our PC to about 10,000 Rand, just under 10,000 Rand, which is around the same price as a PS5 locally, a normal PS5. And in terms of performance, this is going to perform more or less on the same level. So I think, okay, these aren't name brand parts, so to say, these are sort of the Asian parts, but getting something like this instead of a PS5 has its own benefits and drawbacks. I'm not going to get into that whole argument again. I've done that a few times, but you could get this or you could get a console if you just want a game. But getting this makes more sense for me as someone that does design work and stuff as well. So, that's really up to you, but the options are out there. So I think it's a good little PC. Let's watch a YouTube video about how it would perform, and yeah, let's see what we get for the money. Let's do it. So I've just opened up a little YouTube video of someone that has similar parts, that is just playing, doing some benchmarking, and basically the only difference is this is the full specs 6600 from AMD. This is not the mobile variant, so we need to remove a little bit of performance there, but not too much, maybe about 10 to 15%. And all in all, this is running at 1080p Ultra, no FSR, no upscaling, anything like that. And it is getting around 60 FPS, a little bit more than 60. So with our mobile variant, we'll say about 60 FPS, which is, that's very good. This PC would be made to play on HD, and I think this is a good starting point, running this game at full graphics. Moving on to Forza Horizon 5, 1080p Ultra, and we are getting around 110 FPS as well. Let's say around 100 to 90 with the mobile variant, and again, HD performance really good, not much to complain about. And this is also a Ryzen 5500, so it's the same CPU, it's just the full spec GPU instead of the mobile variant. As for RAM, it also has 16 gigs of RAM. Far Cry 6, a game that I'm currently enjoying, and my 3070 gets, maybe around 130 FPS average at 1080p Ultra with everything turned on, and this is getting about 80. So let's say it's going to get about 60 to 70 with the mobile variant. Perfect. Really good experience, really good gameplay. For an HD PC, you don't really need much more. 10,000 Rand is going to do the trick. And I'm pretty sure you can get 10,000 Rand worth of parts locally, around $600. It doesn't have to be through AliExpress. That's just what I'm doing for this one. Elden Ring, probably going to be capped at 60. 1080p maximum, just running at 60. It's probably just going to be like that for most of the time. Same for the mobile variant. CSGO, not really worth a look. Valorant, same thing. Red Dead we can take a look at. So Red Dead, 1080p Ultra, and that's the nice thing about this card, 70 FPS. It is an 8GB card. Now I know in 2024 8GB card isn't wow, but when you're building budget builds, and this isn't a budget build per se, but this is a sort of budget oriented good build for HD. That's how I would describe this. GTA 5 you're going to get around 120, all settings on maximum except for advanced setting turned off, but I don't think that would make much of a difference. And yeah, this just proves my point. This is going to be a good PC. It'll run any game at HD, probably on full, maybe a few of the most newest games maybe at medium, but most games it's going to run on full graphics, and for around 10,000 Rand, around $600, $500 to $600 depending on the exchange rate, you're going to get some really good performance. So if you are comfortable with building from AliExpress, then I would say go for it. And thank you to this channel for hosting the video for us. I mean, they didn't do anything for me. I just sort of went and took a look at it. But I do like that these channels exist because they make it possible to sort of check your computers before you buy them. And this channel specifically is called Shadow 7. So check the channel out as well. With that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.